will be presenting. DRC is going to be presenting during the lunch hour for the exhibitors. We'll have a quick 10 to 15 minutes or so then, but we're also going to be presenting during session 3, where we're actually going to discuss TABE Class E if you're maybe considering supports and finding out what you need to do for where your learners are at for English language acquisition. But for this first session, we are going to be discussing TABE 11 and 12 to be able to support your local programs with placement and readiness. My name is Chelsea Rivera, and I am the Assessment Solutions Consultant for New York as well as Pennsylvania. This is my contact information in case you may have any questions. Please feel free to use that number for a text, for a phone call, and my email is there as well for any questions you may have after today. We are going to be starting off with an overview of the TABE assessment. We're then going to jump into the student experience to be able to go over some sample test items for a few of the different subtests that are available. We'll also be discussing data-driven instruction. Why is it important? And specifically, how does that tie into the educator experience with the reports that are made available for teachers? Last but not least, we'll be ending with using data as a call to action to really support learners' goals. And then hopefully at the end, we are going to have a little bit of time for a Q&A. So TABE is over 50 years old. It is a standardized assessment that was first released in 1967 with versions 1 and 2. TABE 11 and 12 is the most recent and current version forms that we are using. We ended up making these available back in January of 2018, and we do have current NRS approval that ends in early 2024. Now, because we have two forms, 11 and 12, what this allows to do is pre-testing and post-testing individuals. For example, you might decide to use TABE 11 at the very start of your program or at intake to be able to identify individual strengths and areas of intervention or support that are needed. Perhaps then use that data to really drive instruction for about 6 to 8 weeks, and then administering TABE 12 to be able to really measure that growth. There are 5 content levels available for TABE, ranging from lowest to highest. There is L, E, M, D, and A. So A stands for advanced, D being difficult, M for medium, E for easy. But all versions are aligned to the National College and Career Readiness Standards, similar to HSE exams if you are using any. With the TABE assessment, there are different subtests that you can administer. We offer reading, math, language, and writing for grade school levels through high school and beyond with the new college and career readiness standards. Really what's nice is you have the flexibility to decide if you want to assess with all 4 of the subject areas that are available, or perhaps only 1 or 2 to support your local needs. So this is a visual just to highlight the various ways to use TABE. It can be used for WIOA-funded ABE programs, really using TABE for that NRS reporting that's required. It's also used across a variety of states across the nation for corrections intake. And you can also integrate TABE as a college placement test. Our math and reading subtests can be administered for HSE alignment. We will look a little later on today at the HSE concordance of TABE, both to HiSET and the GED. And TABE is also a great assessment to assess workplace readiness, either as part of career tech programs or even private industries like policing, manufacturing, healthcare. But I'm very excited later on today to be able to take you through some of the updates that we have coming even later on this spring to be able to support workforce readiness. There are a variety of ways that you can administer the TABE 11 and 12 assessment. Today, we're really going to be focusing on that online component that is available through DRC Insight. You can administer TABE online in person in a computer lab, for example, in a regular classroom if you have devices for individuals. But we also allow for using the online version to conduct remote testing. Typically with remote testing, you would have no more than 5 individuals joining a video conferencing platform such as Zoom, like how we are now, to be able to proctor them and administer that assessment. We will touch very briefly on the offline digital testing component. If you are a site, for example, where the internet connection may not necessarily be the best, offline digital testing is a really nice way to be able to cut administration time. We ended up doing a study with the Texas correctional facilities, and they found that in comparison to paper pencil testing, with the TABE ODT or offline digital testing, they actually were able to reduce administration by 97%. So we will be touching on the difference between TABE online versus TABE offline digital testing, because those are two really nice ways to be able to deliver. And then last but not least, of course, we also offer that paper pencil standard testing component as well. This is a breakdown here of the maximum allowable times for test administration. So here you will notice that for some of the components, specifically math, depending on the level that the students are assessed at, the administration time may vary. But it typically takes, if you wanted to, for example, you have the ability to assess the math component one day, the reading component another day, but note that if you decide to support your local needs, that maybe you do want to assess different subtests on different days, both parts would have to be tested on the same day. So for example, if I decide I'm going to be testing on math tomorrow, then I would have to administer both part 1 and part 2. Okay. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the student experience. So with TABE online, you would be using the DRC Insight platform. So this is just a screenshot here of what that home screen looks like for every single test session. So I had mentioned earlier that you might decide to do a pre-test with TABE 11, use that data to drive instruction for about 6 to 8 weeks, and then use TABE 12. The students would have unique usernames and passwords for both of those test sessions, but this is just a screenshot here of what their interface would look like. Now, we're going to take a look at some sample online items. So these are what we call our OTTs, or our online tools training. So I'll click in here. So here up at the top, this is where we have the TABE 11 and 12 different subtests that are made available. Let's take a look at math. Once I click on math, this is where I can preview some test items for 4 of the 5 different levels available. So let's hop into level M for medium. We're going to use the standard version, but note that if you have individuals where they have accommodations for text to speech, there is also an audio component that can be used as well. I'll click on the standard. Now, once I get to this screen, because this is the online tools training, I'm actually going to just enter in the username and the password that I see here on the screen. I will click on sign in. And this is the home screen that the students will be taken to the day that they sit for that assessment. So the online tools training will not only provide students with sample test items in preparation for taking the TABE assessment, but it's also going to acquaint them with the user interface. Oftentimes what I hear from current users is, well, I'm concerned about the lack, for example, of skills that my students may have for using computers. So this is just a nice way to be able to acquaint them with the user interface and try to lessen any anxiety that they may have knowing that it is an online assessment they're taking. So I'll click on continue. Let's say that the day of the test, I was actually going to be taking math and reading. I would see both hyperlinks populate underneath. So here I'm going to click on the math for level M, and now it's just going to walk me through the different tools that are going to be made available, the different navigations that I have. So I'll click on next. It's mentioning that I will be using the pointer to be able to select answers, also to be able to select the flag option if I ever want to flag a question, not waste time on humming and hawing over it, and then easily return to that flagged question at a later time. I have the next and back buttons to be able to go through the assessment, but now it's also going to introduce me to some of the helpful tools that I can use while taking the test. So I have a highlighter where I can highlight key information, vocabulary terms, numbers. I also have a sticky note that I can use to annotate text. Maybe if I want to show my work for math, the math component specifically, breaking apart the different steps to solve an equation. I also have a magnifying glass to zoom in, and then if needed, I have a calculator that I can use as well. Now, as long as the individuals, the day of testing, are able to see these 3 different colored dots, then the screen resolution is ready to go for them to be able to then start. So here, this is where I might decide to use some of the tools up at the top. This is one of the sample questions telling me to look at the expression and evaluate the expression for the 2 given values of the variable. So let's use my sticky note. I know that I will start off with division because of PEMDAS. So I'll do 4 divided by 2. I know that that equals 2, and then 2 plus 10. I know that that equals 12, so then I would plug to maybe even use a new sticky note for the second component. Again, just to be able to show my work. And then once I have the answer, whoops, that's where I would then plug it in here. Again, I could always click on the flag option if I did not want to waste time, if maybe I was stumped on it, that way I could easily come back to it at a later time. Let's click on next. If I click on this drop-down menu, this is where I could jump to other questions. So I'll flag this. So you'll notice now when I click that drop-down, there's a light colored flag that will show behind question number 2. But this is just a really nice way for the students, again, to get acquainted with the different tools to be able to help them with answering, and then also to be able to go through a few sample questions. Now, let's say that that you're meeting with your students in class and you want to acquaint all of them at once with the different tools. If you have a projector in your classroom, then you can always share your screen through the projector and then go through these together. Okay, so we'll jump back into the presentation, but those were just a few sample online items that are available. So that's with TABE Online. We're gonna pause briefly and talk about the TABE offline digital testing to see what that student experience is like. So as you can tell, is very different from that online component. The online version, we are going completely through the DRC Insight system. The questions are already pre-populated in TABE Online, but I'm actually able to input my answers and then use those online tools available. But let's say that maybe your internet connection is not necessarily the strongest. TABE offline digital testing is a great way to still really reduce that test administration time, again, by about 97% when you compare it to the paper pencil testing. You'll notice here that with the student experience, it's actually a PDF scanned version of the test. On the left-hand side of the screen, the individuals would be able to see their questions. And then on the right-hand side of the screen, that's where they would go through and select their responses. Now, when we compare TABE Online with this PDF scanned version, the TABE ODT, one thing I do want to say, you will get the same exact reports as an educator. The reports will still generate within about 30 to 60 minutes to be able to really help with guiding instruction. But again, if you have very minimal access to internet, TABE ODT is a great solution to be able to really cut back on the paperwork, cut back on test administration time, and still be able to get those quick results with some wonderful reports to help driving instruction. Okay, so I'm going to pause there to see if there are any questions, because that last visual, we're looking at the TABE Online experience, going through some sample math items. And then with TABE Offline digital testing, again, no internet is required on behalf of the individuals taking the assessment, but I want to pause and see if there are any questions so far. Okay, no news is good news. I'm going to open up the chat off to the side and just keep that open in case anything comes through. But let's transition now. So I was mentioning that with both TABE Online and TABE ODT, you're going to be able to get the same reports for your individuals to really help with guiding instruction. So before we get into the reports, let's talk about data-driven instruction. According to Driven by Data by Paul Bambrick-Santoyo, in effective data-driven instruction, test administrators would conduct two different testing events. The pre-test would be conducted. You would then be able to use the data to drive instructions for about 6 to 8 weeks, to then administer a post-test. More than a traditional scope and sequence, the assessments would really provide a roadmap to rigorous teaching and learning. And then carefully analyzing the results on a regular basis would allow you to provide feedback to your individuals to be able to support their goals. Oftentimes, individuals have specific goals in mind. It might be that they're looking for readiness toward a certain career path. They might instead be looking to attain their high school equivalency diploma. So really just understanding what their goals are and involving them in that process is really going to allow for transparency and accountability. So with that, let's talk about the reports that you have available. This is a list of the reports. So these are, again, available with TABE Online or the TABE Offline digital testing. If you are a paper pencil tester and you scan the student answer sheets through the DRC Insight system, you can also get these reports as well. The main report is the individual profile report. We also, however, have the individual portfolio to be able to track longitudinal growth. We have the local on-demand extract that has immediate scores and should be ready within just about 15 to 20 minutes of the test being completed. We also send bulk exports nightly to any data system through NYACCE to be able to support, again, that reporting that is needed. And then there is also a bulk export available that includes strength and weaknesses data that we'll see in just a few slides. But ultimately, when you use the TABE assessment, you would really have the level of data needed to support individual growth, career readiness, and then that high school equivalency support. So this is page 1 of the individual profile report. At the very top, this is where you can see the individual demographic information. And then down below, this is where you can see their test results for the subtests that they were administered in October of 2018. I was mentioning earlier that you have the capability to administer different subtests on different days. So here you'll notice that this individual was assessed for reading on the 25th of October for level M. Then they were also assessed for math and language on the following day on the 26th, both with level M. If you have individuals where their math capabilities are very different from their reading capabilities, you absolutely have the option to assign different levels of the TABE assessment as needed. We actually have a TABE locator that can be used. With the TABE locator, the students would have a series of questions where, based off of their results, you would then be able to determine which level best suits them to ensure that they are properly challenged and measured on the skills that they do know. Up top, this is where for each of the subtests, you can also see the total amount of points possible, the total amount of points that were obtained by the individual, and the total amount of items that were attempted. You may be looking here at the scale score. So it has a 575 plus scale score for reading. What this shows is that the individual might actually be ready to move on to one level above the targeted level. So in other words, this individual might actually be prepared for a level D of the TABE reading assessment. This is where we can also see the corresponding NRS levels. And we also are able to tell if there were measurable skills gains. The Y will appear if yes, they did end up having skill gains throughout the academic year, whereas a no would denote that the student either did not have enough data or did not receive a gain. Down below, this is now where we break down the performance by domain. So again, TABE is aligned to college career readiness standards. So if I wanted to see proficiency, partial proficiency, non-proficiency, this is where I can see the check marks denoted in the last 3 columns. But here in the center, I'm again able to see the quantity of points that were obtained for each domain. So for key ideas and details of reading, 17 of 18 points obtained. Now you might be thinking, well, I want more data that is specifically going to tell me what interventions I need to lead. That data will follow on these subsequent pages. So now my key ideas and details are breaking down even further. So we had seen on that last slide that for this specific domain, they did score within the proficiency level, but I might still have some areas that I can target for instruction to be able to continue supporting this individual. So on that subsequent page, it will share with me their demonstrated skills based off of their results, and then also areas for next focus. This is a really nice way if you're thinking of those tiered supports that you have to provide individuals. Of course, if you find that you have multiple students who need support with using evidence to support the analysis of connections among ideas in a very complex text, you might decide to do small group interventions. If you see that multiple students across the class actually need this support, then you can do whole class instruction as needed as well. But this is, again, a great way to be able to let the data speak to you to support the individuals as needed. This is our portfolio report. Again, this is showing you that longitudinal data over time. So for this individual, now note that at the very bottom, that's where you would be able to see the first set of tests that were administered. So in other words, the tests up at the top that you see, those results coming in are the most recent ones. So down below, my individual was assessed with TABE 12 in the domains of reading and language on the 30th of November, both on level E. And this is where I can see the NRS corresponding level, and I can also see their scale score. I then see that they were assessed with TABE 11 after data was used to really drive instruction. And They were also administered the math component at level M. And now for language, they ended up being tested at level M for reading level D. So this is, again, just how you're able to track that growth, track the skill scores and results over time. Ultimately, from the data that we just saw on the last slide, as well as with the individual profile report, some updates that we've recently had are direct links to our curriculum partners. So this is just one example for one of the curriculum partners that we work with, but we also work with Burlington Publishing, we work with Aztec, we also work with Essential Ed that you'll see here. But this will allow you to easily assign lessons to students based off of the areas of next focus through, for Essential Ed, they call this TABE Academy. So TABE Academy, this is an online course that includes over 300 skill-based lessons and is perfectly aligned to the college career readiness standards. TABE Academy will quickly identify the exact skills students need to master to accelerate gains for levels E, M, D, and A. And the adaptive learning system will create a personalized learning plan for each student, starting with core foundational skills and building competency quickly. Along the way, as an educator, you'll be able to track their progress and customize their learning plans within Essential Ed's LMS system. But through here, what you're able to see, so up at the top, these are some sample lessons just taken from Essential Education's website. So if I found that I had individuals that needed support to solve math problems with whole numbers for level E, I would be able to click on watch. And then this bottom screenshot that you see, this is where we now see that sample lesson. So the lessons start off with an introduction, and then it is going to break apart the components of that lesson. So there's a basic problem solving section, how to apply that to the real world, and then a series of practice questions, including a summary at the end. But again, we really want to emphasize that it's a matter of using the data that is made available through the reports on TABE, where you can then link to our curriculum partners like Essential Ed, like Aztec, Burlington, New Readers Press, so that way their systems could be able to read this data file and plan custom learning pathways for individuals. Okay, so the call to action, again, so when we had first started talking about data-driven instruction, I had addressed understanding what your individual's goals are. One of those goals may be workforce readiness. It may be HSE preparation. So if they are looking to obtain a high school equivalency diploma, the next two slides we're going to look at is our TABE and HSE concordance. So here, this is for reading specifically. The blue part of the graph that you see, this will be the minimum passing score for a TABE level M. So for a student to be able to pass the GED, it's showing that on a TABE level M, they would need at least a 536. They would also need a 536 to be able to pass at a minimum passing score for the high set. Now, in orange, that's where it would denote for level D, for college ready for the GED, that would be a 627. And then also a 627 for high set college and career readiness. And then level A is denoted here in that gold color with a 721. Now, when we think about the difference between the blue for level M versus the orange for level A, or that gold, orange for level D, sorry, or that gold for level A, when you think of level M, this would be if a student, for example, was scoring C's and D's for grades in high school, you graduated, but are you ready for the rigors of a good job or post-secondary requirements? Continuing within their local program would allow educators to better prepare to perform at a higher level on TABE. So again, I was mentioning earlier, you have two different versions of the TABE assessment. You have TABE 11 and TABE 12. So you can continue to use the data to really drive that growth, prepare students for those higher levels, for level D, for level A, to really ensure that they are ready for college and or their careers. With this, it does demonstrate the increase of rigor created by the U.S. Department of Education for WIOA Title II programs to follow. So the goal of the higher levels of level D and A, and also of the higher levels of NRS, is really to better prepare students to succeed, again, on HSE tests and then excel at post-secondary or workforce programs. Okay, so not simply pass at a minimum level. So we would want to look at the orange minimum scores, denoting students testing at a level D, and then again in gold with that level A. And in a similar vein, this is the concordance for math. In blue, again, that's that minimum score, C's and D's for level M with a 537. For level D in orange, so it's a 604 for the high set, a 650 for the GED, and then for level A, that's 742. I see a question in the chat from Cody. Hi, Cody, nice to connect with you. Have the updated concordance charts been uploaded to the TABE website resource bank? Absolutely. So I'm going to post in the chat tabetest.com. These are located under resources. You would actually be able to see, I think it's called TABE to HSE concordance, but we'll take a look at that shortly. Great question. Now, beyond HSE preparation, you might instead have individuals where they're looking to join the workforce. So plan for later this spring, we are going to be releasing a new TABE workforce report portal. This is going to be directly within DRC Insight, really for the test administrators or educators. And it will align to the top Bright Outlook careers from the Department of Labor's ONET site. We would be correlating the reading scale scores to reading lexile and the math scale scores to math quantiles. Metametrics has lexile and quantile reporting available, but with TABE, this will link the reading and math requirements for in-demand jobs. We did just complete a research study to align TABE scores to lexile and quantile levels, but the new report that is now being created is really just going to allow the individuals to see if they are on track for being successful for the career that they are interested in. But let's take a few examples. So these are just some mock-ups. So again, we have not yet released this, but through the DRC Insight portal, we are thinking of integrating this either within our general information area, perhaps within the reporting area, but this would be the TABE workforce portal sign-in. So you would enter in the administration, your site name, first, last name, and then your student ID, because again, you would want to view this for each individual student. Now, my suggestion, just as a former educator, again, you want to be having these continued conversations with individuals to hold them accountable, get them invested. Oftentimes, individuals may not actually want to sit to take a test, so get them invested in getting the best possible results that they can to really ensure that they are ready for the workforce. And then from there, once you enter in the student information, so this screenshot is for an individual interested in being a lineman. So here they would be able to see what their math scale score is. So they earned a 605 on the TABE assessment. And then they ended up earning a 584 on the reading component. And up at the top, it is saying that the reading scale score target for a lineman is a 616. So this individual is not yet at that goal. They are still at a 584. So again, I would want to use the data available from the reports to really help drive instruction and ensure that for that second go around of TABE testing, they can achieve at least a 616 or higher. The target for math is a 576. Again, this individual scored a 605. So they are good to go for that math component. On that first page, that's where beyond the scale score range, you would be able to see a definition or, sorry, a summary of that job overview, but also required education. So 12 years, that's high school graduate. So general education, preferred experience, anything that they've done in the past. So for alignment, mechanical, customer personal service, anything physical, for example, making sure that they're able to get up the poles as needed. Then you would also be able to discuss, okay, well, what is the pay that you are looking to make? What is your annual salary? So here for alignment, this shows the annual salary. It also shows an hourly pay, and then it shows that projected career growth as well as projected career openings. What we will allow you to do is, let's say that I am based in Albany, New York, but my individual is talking with me and they're saying, hey, I have family down in Poughkeepsie. I actually want to move back down by Poughkeepsie. You could select the state, and then you could even do a more local search to be able to see job openings available once they were to exit your program. Of course, there's more information available as well. So it would also outline for them key tasks, technical skills that are required. And as you're conferencing with them, they might actually say, you know, looking over these tasks, I don't actually think this is a good fit for me. So we have some suggested other related career fields with hyperlinks that you could click into to be able to, again, get that comparison with their reading lexile and math quantile scores. This is just another sample here. So this one is specifically for a nurse practitioner and dental assistant. Again, you would be able to see a job summary overview, the education that is required, what experience is preferred, and then more importantly, here off to the side, it is sharing that an individual would need at least a 583 for the reading component. So they did indeed earn that. And then at least a 600 for the math component. So they actually have about 15 points that they need to increase their scale score by to be able to be considered at level for math. Again, you can then scroll down, discuss with them what they're looking to make for their job, search careers within their local area, and then see the tasks that are needed to perform within this job, technical skills required, and then related other fields as well. Okay, so this update, the TABE Workforce Portal, this is something that we are working on and that is underway for us to release late this spring. But something that's really nice to be able to support your local programs, because if you are looking to have your students be workforce ready, what better way than to go into the ONET site, see how their TABE scores correlate to the fields that they're looking to get into to ensure that they can indeed be successful. Okay, so any questions? We did end quite early, but I wanted to ensure that we had some time for questions. I'll post my contact information here again on the screen. And in the meantime, I'm going to jump back into that tabetest.com website. So there are a variety of resources available. Earlier, we were looking at the online tools training to be able to support individuals. So note that when you go to tabetest.com and you select resources, you can also access the online tools training right from that site to be able to jump into some sample questions, show the individuals the user interface to be able to prepare them for the day of testing. Within the resources area, this is where you will also see that updated form for the TABE to HSE concordance. So let's zoom in here. My eyes are not the best. A brief breakdown here of information, but on page 2, that's where you would be able to see those minimum passing scores for both reading and math for GED and HiSET. On our website as well. So if you wanted to peruse the individual profile report, we have the TABE individual profile report where it just breaks down some of the different areas that you'll see. This was the first component that we had looked at, where we had discussed the different levels that the students are tested at, scale scores. We also talked about the measurable skills gain, but then we had discussed being able to see proficiency for specific domains, and then better yet, being able to get that breakdown of skills demonstrated based off of the assessment and then areas for next focus. If you click within that document on that embedded hyperlink, this is where you will get a further breakdown of demonstrated skills and areas for next focus to really be able to see what type of reports you can get. Another common question that we receive is with regards to support, to training. When you hover over TABE 11 and 12, we do have, if you are somebody like me where you prefer just following instructions on a quick guide, you can click on the TABE online quick start guide, and then this will give you step-by-step instructions starting from the login, managing users to be able to ensure all test administrators can access the portal, through setting up test sessions, setting up the locator to determine the best level to assess students at, and then being able to generate and view the reports. And if you are somebody, instead of having that step-by-step guide, perhaps you want a certification to be able to administer, we have a 2-module certification process available free of charge. There are 2 different modules, part 1 and part 2, available at the certification link that you see through the resources. And then there are, of course, some support guides as well. And last but not least, we also have some quick videos as well. So if you are looking for a quick video with that guide that we had previously seen, there are some on-demand links. If you just need help with setting up test sessions in DRC Insight, there's a quick video tutorial that you can watch. Okay, and also within the TABE 11 and 12 area, the last thing I wanted to point out before I take a look at that chat, we also have a series of on-demand pre-recorded webinars as well. So this webinar page is going to provide you with additional information with the TABE offline digital testing. That was that PDF scanned version of TABE that we were discussing before. No internet required on behalf of the individuals being tested. We also have guidance for remote testing, monitoring individuals. As our writing component is new, we do have a webinar with regards to the writing component. Then if you, for example, are somebody where you use New Readers Press, we also have other webinars that you can use to be able to understand how to support individuals from the reports made with TABE with the curriculum available through New Readers Press. And then down below, that's where you would be able to also access some of the best practices webinars. Okay, so I'll just post this contact information up. Another question, before I heard that the rollout for the TABE workforce portal would be late May. Has that been pushed back further? Yes, Cody, thank you so much. So we were absolutely aiming for May for this month, but there has been a delay in development. Really just making sure that, first of all, we are still deciding if we want to house it within the general information area or right within the reports for educators. But we're also just making sure that all the kinks are worked out prior to launch. So it will be late this spring. Great question. Of course, of course. Other questions?
Chelsea, thank you so much for presenting. We really appreciate it. I just wanted to mention, as you see, Chelsea's contact information is there. You can also find this listed on the events website, and we will be sending out all of the sponsor information directly to all the participants, so they have that direct contact information through an email next week, most likely. If I could just make a reminder for everyone to fill out their survey, which will automatically appear when you exit the session, or at least that's what I've been told. So if that doesn't happen for any reason, please let us know. And as Chelsea pointed out at the beginning of her presentation, she and a few of the other sponsors will be providing a lunch and learn session at 12:45 today, which will run for an hour. And please consider attending. There's some really great raffle prizes that we'll be raffling off to those who participate at the end of that session before the afternoon workshops begin. Chelsea, thank you again so much.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you for the opportunity to present, and thank you everybody so much for attending. I hope you enjoy the conference today.
Thanks, guys. You're free to go. If you wanted to tag on to another session for their last little bit, feel free to do so just by going back to your lobby and entering into any of the sessions that are still running. Otherwise, the next set of them will begin around 11 a.m. Thank you all for coming in.
Thank you, Amy.
Thank you.